The skies over Zavera were always bright purple at dawn, calm and quiet. But today, something broke the silence. A silver Earth shuttle entered the atmosphere, cutting through clouds like a knife. For the people of Zavara, this was the first time seeing a real human. Children ran toward the high towers to watch. Elders whispered to each other in worry. And in the center of the capital, the High Council gathered. Captain Leo stepped out of the shuttle slowly. He was calm. His boots touched the sacred soil with care. He looked around and saw thousands watching him. He smiled softly, but said nothing. His uniform was clean, simple, no weapons, no signs of power, just peace. Inside the council chamber, the leaders of Zavara waited. Their leader, Elder Thirin, stood. "Welcome, human. Speak your truth." Leo nodded politely. "I bring no threat. I bring a warning." Whispers began. Before Leo could explain, a sharp voice cut through the hall. "Do not listen to his words." General Mari stepped forward. Her eyes locked on Leo like a hunter watching prey. Mari was the youngest general in Zavara's history. Brave, intelligent, and fiercely loyal to her people. She didn't trust outsiders, especially not humans. To her, Earth was greedy, violent, and always late when others needed help. "This is a trick," Mari said. "They come when we are peaceful, speak of danger, and try to gain control." Leo stayed quiet for a moment. Then he spoke clearly. 10 years ago, Earth was hit by a cosmic storm. It destroyed cities, killed millions, and changed our planet forever. We studied it for years. Now, that same storm is coming towards Zavara. The room fell silent. Elder Thirin asked, "What kind of storm?" Leo replied, "It's not wind or rain. It's an invisible wave full of cosmic radiation and gravity shifts. It crushes planets slowly. Zavara's orbit is already weakening. You only have weeks." A small screen lit up on Leo's wrist. He showed graphs, orbit maps, and real data. Some council members looked shocked. A few believed him, but not Mari. "You come with stories and fear," she said. "You want us to beg you for help. You want control over our systems. You want to make us depend on you." Leo turned to her. "No, I want to stop your people from dying." She narrowed her eyes. "We don't need saving." Without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. Leo looked at the council. "I understand your fear, but I won't force you to believe me. I'll stay here. I'll help whoever asks." The council ended the session early. Outside, the people whispered. Some were hopeful, some were afraid. Some followed Mari's anger. Night. Leo sat alone in his quarters, looking up at Zavara's twin moons. He remembered Earth, how unprepared they were when the storm came, how his sister died in the chaos. That was why he joined the diplomacy program. That was why he came here. But, in another part of the city, Mari stood on the edge of the observation tower, staring at the human shuttle. Her fists were tight. Her thoughts were loud. What if he's right? No, he's just trying to divide us. But, what if he's not lying? A soft rain began to fall, and thunder rolled far away, as if the planet itself was beginning to speak. And that ... was the beginning of the end. 3 days passed. In those days, the sky above Zavera began to shift. Not violently, but strangely. Stars that were once steady began to flicker. Small tremors, unrecorded by planetary systems, shook remote mountains. The high tides arrived 2 hours earlier than expected. Still, most Zavarans lived their lives as normal. But a few had started to worry. In the capital's science station, a young researcher named Kale stayed up through the night, staring at data streaming across his monitor. The temperature fluctuations, the magnetic waveforms, it all matched Leo's warning. Kale wasn't a soldier. He wasn't important. But he knew enough to understand one terrifying truth. Something was coming. He sent a message to General Mari. She didn't respond. At the edge of the western sky, strange shapes appeared, silent flashes like mirrors twisting in space. Birds flew in patterns never seen before. One morning, the second sun of Zavara appeared dimmer, its rays flickering like a dying lamp. In the military headquarters, Mari stood before her commanders. "These are coincidences," she said firmly. "Do not let the humans' words make you see ghosts in the sky." But deep inside, even Mari felt something wrong. She hadn't slept well in days. She kept thinking of Earth's photos, those broken cities, the twisted rivers, and the dead still. She refused to admit fear. Meanwhile, Captain Leo worked in silence. He had moved out of the capital, choosing instead to stay near an abandoned observatory on the hills. There, he reactivated his Earth beacon and contacted the orbital satellites above Zavara's system. He wasn't waiting for orders. He was preparing defenses. He didn't need permission, but he needed time. Inside the observatory, he set up magnetic shields, underground stabilizers, and gravity anchors. He sent messages to scientists and engineers across Zavara. Most didn't respond. A few did bet secretly. They came in quiet hours, carrying old tools, wearing no uniforms. They called themselves the ones who still hope. Back in the capital, Kale finally reached General Mari in person. He held a tablet in his hands, shaking. "General," he said, "the orbital data from 3 separate sources match what the humans said. I've double-checked. Our planet's position has shifted. By less than a degree, but that's enough to destabilize climate." Mari didn't look at him. "And who gave you these calculations?" Kale hesitated. "Captain Leo." She turned sharply. "Get out." "But I said out." Kale walked out, heart pounding. Outside, he saw people watching the sky. A child pointed at a strange blue spiral above the clouds. A vendor stopped selling fruit just to stare. Later that night, thunder cracked loudly without any clouds in sight. Lights in half of the capital flickered for exactly 13 seconds. The city's defense grid went offline. It returned soon after, but no one knew why. That evening, a reporter asked Elder Theron in a public interview, "Do you believe the human?" The elder looked into the camera, tired and unsure. "I do not know." But General Mari had already made up her mind. She called a private meeting with her commanders. "The human has started spreading fear. If anyone assists him, arrest them. He is here to break us from within." Back at the observatory, Leo sat with the small team that had joined him. They were building fast. Every hour counted. A young Zavaran engineer, Yari, asked him, "Why do you keep trying, even when they hate you?" Leo looked up. "Because I've seen what happens when you wait too long." Earth thought it had more time. It didn't. He turned back to the scanner. The cosmic wave had now entered the outer solar shell. Days remained, perhaps less. But in the city, a celebration was being prepared. Zavara's annual Unity Day. Dancers practiced, banners flew, and the storm in space came closer with every beat of the drums. It began with silence. Not the peaceful silence of night. This was different. Deep, heavy, unnatural. At exactly 3:17 local time, the winds on Zavara stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Trees froze mid-sway. Water in fountains paused, as if held by invisible hands. And then, in the next heartbeat, it hit. A pulse, not seen, not heard, but felt, across the planet. People grabbed their chests, confused, dizzy. Buildings groaned. Some glass cracked. Birds screamed and fell from the sky. Electronics sparked briefly, then returned mostly normal. But the planet had changed. Captain Leo knew what it meant. He stared at the readings on his observatory console. "The first wave," he whispered. "It's begun." The data showed a sharp gravitational anomaly, exactly like the one that hit Earth 3 days before the true storm arrived. Around him, his small team of Zavarans gasped at the readings. "How bad will it get?" Yari asked. Leo didn't answer. He just tightened the straps on his vest and walked to the outer shield generator. They needed to finish it fast. At the capital, the city's leadership woke to confusion. Emergency lines were flooded with strange reports. Skyfish dead in the southern rivers. Clocks skipping forward 6 seconds. Entire mountain shadows shifting position. But still no official statement. General Mari stood in her private chamber, staring at her sword placed above the mantle. Her mind raced. She had received 20 reports in 2 hours. None made sense. But they all shared one thing: something invisible had passed through them. For the first time in many years, she felt unsure. Was the human telling the truth? She crushed the thought quickly. Then, her communicator beeped. General, there's been a shuttle crash. The transport ship carrying her younger sister, Lieutenant Luray, had gone down during routine patrol. The pilots reported no engine failure. The controls simply stopped responding. The ship spun in midair and landed hard in the outer district. Miraculously, all crew survived, but Lura's leg was badly injured. Mari visited her in the recovery unit. Lura opened her eyes, weak but smiling. You were right, she whispered. The human. He warned us. Mari froze. I don't want to die proud, sister, Lura said softly. Those words stayed in Mari's mind for the rest of the night. Meanwhile, Leo activated the shield node, deep underground. A humming vibration spread through the earth. He checked his map. He had covered nearly 8% of the region. Not enough to protect the capital, but it could save lives nearby. A young Zavaran boy named Silan came to him that evening. My mother says thank you for fixing our light system, the boy said. She said no. Zavaran ever helped us like this? Leo smiled weakly. We're not so different, he said. We just forgot how to listen. Outside, the stars flickered again. This time, to disappeared completely. The storm was closer in. The High Council chamber. Elder Thyron called an emergency session. Scientists, officers, and generals sat silently as a hologram showed the solar orbit. The storm, once distant, had accelerated. It was now expected to make contact in 5 planetary rotations. Mari stood, her voice calm but sharp. We cannot allow panic. We cannot show weakness. But a counselor spoke up. What if our strength is killing us? The room fell quiet. For the first time, Mari had no answer. That night, she stood outside, watching the stars. Her mother once told her, if the sky goes quiet, something loud is on its way. The sky had gone quiet, and something loud was coming. Asterisk. It started with laughter, then ended in screams. Zavara's Unity Day festival had just begun. Lanterns lit the sky. Music flowed through the capital like water, and children danced under floating lights shaped like the planet's twin moons. For a moment, everything felt safe again. As if the warnings were a dream. As if the planet wasn't slowly dying. But then the ground cracked. Not a quake, a snap. Like something underneath had just broken loose. A tower near the city's west gate tilted slightly just a few degrees. No one noticed at first, until its shadow moved in the wrong direction. Then, the screaming began. Captain Leo watched from a distance. He had warned them. He had pleaded. And now, he watched Zavara's capital panic as emergency sirens echoed across the city for the first time in decades. He turned to Yari. We have 72 hours, maybe less. The crust is shifting. The planet's own spin is unstable. Yari stared at the screen. The city, our people. We can't save all of them, Leo said, voice heavy. But we can save some, if we start now. Inside the capital command room, General Mari stood frozen. She had ordered calm. She had blocked Leo's transmissions. She had even arrested 2 scientists who tried to replicate his warning system. Now, her city was crumbling. Elder Thyron entered, his face pale. I told you to listen, he said quietly. M-A-A-R. I didn't respond. Her hand gripped the edge of the strategy table. Below them, The streets were chaos fires, crowds, people begging for answers. And then came the final blow. A video broadcast. Leo appeared on every public screen in Zavara, his face, tired, but firm. I didn't want to do this, but I must. This is a global emergency. The cosmic storm is here. The first pulse already damaged your planet's internal stability. You may not believe me, but you've seen it. He showed a live orbital scan. The storm's tendrils were already brushing against Zavara's magnetosphere. You have less than 3 rotations before the second pulse. If you want help, come to the western ridge. There is shelter. There is protection. There is time, but only if you act now. The council chamber exploded in noise. Mari slammed her hand on the table. He's trying to take control. He's bypassed all protocols. He's turned our people against us. One of the younger generals stood up. No, you did that, when you silenced his warning. Mari stared at him. You put your pride over our survival. Meanwhile, thousands of citizens began leaving the capital on foot, by air bikes, even walking, toward the western ridge, toward the human. Trust had broken. Not slowly, suddenly. Mari stood alone in the war room as reports flooded in. Desert cities shutting down. Railways cracked. The eastern sea boiling slightly under the magnetic wave. And, for the first time, she whispered, not as a general, but as a sister, a daughter, a Zevaran. What have I done? That night, a second pulse struck, stronger than the first, and this time, it took something with it. The entire northern communication grid collapsed. Silence fell again. But this time, it was not peace. It was the sound of a civilization falling apart. Hope was no longer a word, had become a direction. West. Every hour, more Zavarans left their broken cities, walking silently under gray skies. Mothers carried children. Elders pushed carts. Soldiers removed their badges and joined the crowd, all moving toward one place, the western ridge. And at the heart of that ridge, deep beneath stone and soil, a human worked like time itself was chasing him. Captain Leo hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. His hands were bruised, his voice hoarse. But the underground shelter built, using Earth's magnetic anchoring systems, was finally taking shape. Power nodes glowed softly. Emergency food systems were active. Water recycling worked. Yari, the young Zavaran engineer, stood beside him. You really believe it will hold? Leo looked at the giant support beams overhead. It held for Earth. It'll hold for Zavara, if we finish in time. Meanwhile, back in the capital, General Mari was no longer holding meetings. She sat alone in her quarters, surrounded by silence. The council had dissolved. The command center was half abandoned. The people had made their choice. And it wasn't her. She stared at her reflection in a dark monitor. Her uniform looked heavier. Now, her face, older. For the first time, she saw not a leader, but someone who had lost the trust of an entire planet. Then came a message. From Captain Leo. You are still welcome here. She stared at the words. No judgment, no anger. Just an open door. Underground, Leo's shelter became more than a bunker. It became a city. Volunteers arrived every hour. Some came with tools, others with knowledge, and many with nothing but fear. Leo welcomed them all. He assigned zones, medical, family, research, and operations. Generators hummed. Gravity stabilizers kept the air balanced. Even the children were given tasks, mostly drawings to brighten the metallic walls. Yari approached him with a problem. We need to expand another kilometer to fit the new group. Leo nodded. Then let's dig. You're not tired. Leo gave a small smile. Fear will rest later. Now it builds. Mari finally left the capital, not with soldiers, not with armor, just herself, and a quiet heart. She traveled alone through broken roads and over quiet fields. She passed empty villages, damaged satellites, and fields that now glowed faintly from atmospheric burn. And when she reached the western ridge, no one saluted her, no one cheered, but no one stopped her either. She entered quietly and walked toward the command station. Yari spotted her. The air grew heavy. Leo turned slowly. Their eyes met. She didn't speak at first. Then, with a voice stripped of rank, pride, and power, she said, "Tell me what to do." Leo handed her a data tablet. "We need more stabilizers deployed to the eastern section. You'll lead that." She blinked, surprised. "You trust me?" "No," he said softly. "I trust your ability. Trust is earned again with action." And she took the tablet. For the first time in her life, she followed someone else's orders. Outside, dark clouds had begun forming strange spirals. Lightning that touched no ground danced across the sky like signals. The third pulse was coming. It would be stronger, faster, and it wouldn't be silent, but underground. People worked, side by side, no longer divided by planet or pride, just humans and Zeverans fighting time together. The sky didn't fall all at once. Sid whispered first. It began with a sound that didn't belong. A low, humming tone like a forgotten song playing beneath the clouds. Birds stopped flying. Animals ran inland from coastlines. And then the lights in the sky began to swirl. Not like weather, like something was pulling them. From the edge of the atmosphere to the depths of Zavara's molten core, the planet began to shift. This was not a storm anymore. This was collapse. Leo stood inside the operations deck of the underground shelter, watching orbital scans. The wavefront was accelerating faster than they had calculated. He looked at Mari, now in field gear, and coated in sweat from rescue missions. "We have 14 hours left," he said. "No more delays." Mari didn't argue. She simply nodded, and gave orders into her com. "Evacuate District 7. Get everyone into the tunnel sectors. Leave the structures, save the people." For the first time, her voice inspired obedience again. But it wasn't fear that moved her troops now. It was respect, across the planet. Cities once filled with lights and laughter went dark. Towers collapsed inward. Rivers reversed course. Mountains trembled. The southern hemisphere cracked open, releasing ancient gases into the sky that turned the clouds silver. Gravity itself began to warp in pulses, lifting small rocks, shifting trees sideways. People cried. Some prayed. Others ran. But thousands still made their way to the western ridge. Some walked for hours. Others died trying. Leo's team opened emergency gates non-stop. Inside the underground chamber, the air was tense but organized. Volunteers handed out food, blankets, and hope, whatever was still left. A small girl looked up at Mari and asked, "Will the sky eat us?" Mari knelt down beside her, eyes gentle. "Not if we stay strong together." Suddenly, sirens blared. Yari rushed in, pale. "A fault line has opened just above our northern tunnel. If it spreads, the shelter will crack." Leo didn't hesitate. "We seal off the northern section. Now." Mari's face dropped. "There are still hundreds coming from the north." "I know," Leo said. "But if we lose the main chamber, we lose everyone." Silence. Then Mari spoke, voice sharp and calm. "I'll go. I'll hold them back and guide whoever's close. You hold the line." Leo grabbed her shoulder. "You may not make it back." She looked him in the eyes. "Then I'll make sure they do." And she ran. Outside. The third pulse struck. This time it screamed. A deafening roar echoed through the sky. Buildings didn't fall, they disintegrated. Steel bent like rubber. Oceans rose, as if reaching for the stars. And in the middle of it, Mari stood at the gates of the northern road, guiding the last wave of survivors' children, elders, wounded fighters. A crack tore through the ridge behind her. Earth lifted like paper. She pushed people forward, one by one. Then, just as she turned back to escape, the cliff beneath her gave way. In the command center, Leo waited. The gate alarm blinked red. He stared and waited, and then a voice broke through the static. "This is Mari. Northern gate clear. I'm coming in." Cheers erupted. Tears flowed. Leo closed his eyes for a moment and whispered, "You did it." But even as they celebrated one small victory, the outer monitors showed the real horror. The main wave of the cosmic storm had reached orbit. It would strike within the hour, and this time there would be no more warnings. Asterisk, the stars blinked out one by one, not like a sunset, not like night. They simply vanished, consumed by the shadow of the storm now swallowing Zavara's sky. Inside the underground shelter, the air was thick. People stopped speaking. The ground vibrated softly, like a heartbeat slowing down. Above them, in the atmosphere, the final wave of the cosmic storm descended. 10,000 times more powerful than the first. There would be no second chance. This was it. Captain Leo stood at the central console, eyes fixed on the external monitors. Red lights flashed across every corner of the map. Pressure levels were rising. Magnetic fields were bending. The storm had entered the lower thermosphere. "This is the point," Leo said quietly, "where Earth began to die." Yari, standing beside him, whispered, "And what about Zavara?" Leo didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the master switch, the emergency lockdown, far in the corridor. Mari moved among the people, calming a mother, guiding engineers, holding an old man's trembling hand. Her voice was firm, steady. No longer a general of war, now a general of survival. She passed a young girl, drawing suns on the metal walls, and smiled softly. And in that quiet moment, a thought crossed her mind. If only I had listened sooner. The storm hit. The shelter shook. Metal groaned. Walls stretched. Screams echoed. Entire cities above were erased, swept into dust. Mountains collapsed. Oceans boiled. The very sky burned gold and black. But underground, the shelter held barely, but it held. Hours later, the silence returned. Not the eerie kind. A different silence. The kind where death had passed and left behind only the living. Leo opened the upper scan screen. Zavara's surface was unrecognizable. The capital was gone. Forests swiped clean. The sky above was gray. Sunlight filtered through ash. He looked at Mari. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, but she was alive, and so were thousands. Later, in the chamber where the council once ruled, Mari stood before a crowd. Survivors, engineers, farmers, elders, children. She wore no uniform, just simple clothes, and a heavy heart. She stepped forward and said, "I was wrong." The crowd didn't speak. I let pride silence truth. I let fear block wisdom. I thought strength was standing alone. But strength, she paused, looking at Leo, is standing together. She bowed her head, and then they applauded, not for her past, but for her change. In the days that followed, new plans were made. Cities would rise again underground at first, and slowly above, a shared world. Zavarans and humans, rebuilding side by side. Leo was offered leadership. He refused. He had only one request. Teach your children not to repeat your mistakes. In a quiet corner of the shelter, a young girl finished her drawing of the sun. She added a small figure next to it, a man with short hair, kind eyes, and a Zavaran woman beside him. She titled it, "The Ones Who Listened." And just like that, Zavara's new story began, not with fear, but with understanding.